Mas se você quiser fazer, como você falou,
Yeah, yeah.
Last tini nga chung go zik jaro na ba sam research dile.
So first of all, to Shide, everyone, welcome here to Shide, and let's start today. First, some of you is first time here. Yes, two of you.
Ma che da shingar.
In these very classes. Okay, welcome to Shide. Shide is a group of Geshes, okay, that is pretty much committed to share their knowledge of the Buddhist philosophy and psychological texts with all society, not just Asian and Tibetan society, but also with Western societies, to help to improve the daily life and to improve the well-being in this very lifetime, okay? And this year, one of the courses here in Shide is this talking about the presentation of the mind. Why? Because actually, who wants to be happy and who doesn't want to suffer? Is the mind within ourselves that needs to transform to a happier pattern and to avoid and suppress all the others bad patterns. That's why we first, before understanding what is the causes of happiness and so forth, we need to understand how this mind is present and exists and works and so forth. Okay, so this is a 1-year course here, and Geshe Lharampa Rangrig Dorje is also teaching. He's from Kham, Tibet. Okay, and he's a very, very high scholar, Geshe Lharampa. Okay, and he's teaching this book. And where's the English book? Here. I'm going to show. It's a book that is, it was compiled by His Holiness. It's about the presentation of the mind. Okay, so we are going to this book this year. Okay, now in this very day today, so Geshe Lharampa will go to the subtleties of the mind. Okay, he already started few classes ago, right? The subtleties. Ja.
Yes.
And this rapa. And then and so he carry on with the presentation of gross, subtle, and very subtle mind. In a very practical way, and of course, just like as it is here. And if you want to do any kind of questions about or unrelated with the topics of the classes, it's pretty much welcome. That's a very good opportunity. Okay.
Last one go zika.
Yeah.
Tani tanda anne la khasona na jwa tadit le son la son nga so sem thara sheni karche gori laglen karche gori lamdu ta nga so do shok ko sem thara ta chi shu tsawarin do shok ko sem thara ta nga so nge ma juwa maze tang sem thara shena kar pen thor ze ta nga so gom gyam nin jona sem chamu kaze ching jwa yore na chu ta mandre ni kaze ching jwa andu na chu ta nje ni kaze ching jwa andu do shok ni chik she yore kaza ka nga so gom gyab ki parishin zik sem che teni ya zigme ka sa tam jeta zigme jela so sem chari chashur ta se pardon zigme ka se ya jewa ka se tandu zina se parma to jewa ta yo mar teni yon jo man kor yo teni she ore ta teni mahim bi sem chamote pecho tani jane ni zonteni tombanye ta ni je chembola so patan ngem jong la so bi gom nin jona na te pa man bi lam nin jostan chi te che lam nin jostan ni yo rezin ngem ma chi mo cho che yin la zu te do shoko sem char shia guban ro te tere.
So first of all, so before we start the topic of today's class, so we were asked about like why are we studying this? Like why are we studying about the subtleties of the mind, right? Well, actually, the way that this mind develop, the mind increase or develop along the path is presented either in different texts, in different explanations, either like in tantric explanation and either sutric explanations, okay, or the sutras text or the tantric text, okay. And the sutra texts, in all the sutra texts, so we can also have experiences, or we need to understand how this mind develops, either like in order to practice or to give rise to the mind that realize emptiness, that mind that realize the mind of enlightenment or bodhicitta, and also the mind of shamatha, vipassana, or calm abiding and special insight, and so forth. And also, since we beings, like this mind or this being or this mind develop life after life and after life to different types of bodies and different parts of types of lives. So for this reason also we need to understand how we go to take a better rebirth and so forth, or how we change lives and so forth. So for this reason, talking about the sutric texts, so we study about the subtleties of the mind, but also now we see a little bit of the tantric explanations.
Sem tari tan de jan do shoko she on di santa zme ke sem sama gom jam ni ran ro ya re ma to ta z de ni te sem chamot le ayo ma re zini tin ri joari tate nga so na sho na ma le on ri na sho le yon sem tara she ya na ja te kar re yon yo gom ja wa rang che tre ma to jen de sem tara she gwa chi o ma na sho le sem chamo go ning ma han chi ke bi wo zer ze ya chi re su te pe cho tan wi che te nga ka sem tara ta she yo re.
And of course, like when we are exploring and understanding, transforming and using these minds, the subtleties of the three subtleties of the mind, which is the gross, subtle, and super subtle mind. So in order to use these, we are talking about modes of meditating. Okay, so when we are meditating, so we are accessing to different levels of these minds. And so when we are talking about the subtle meditating, and so we are talking about the subtle and the very subtle mind, states of mind, not the gross subtle mind, okay? And talking about the following the sutra text, the sutra explanation, and so it's always talking, mainly talking about the, what's the name in English? Let me just see here. The primordial innate mind. So the primordial innate mind, that mind that goes to the next life. So that very mind we can just access using meditation processes. So for how to use these and what is the benefit and so forth, that's why we have to learn and to study these texts.
Tanda nyuma lanji ke bi wozer ze atata niksem ze sem chashor tanga choti gani gom raw jawa ta tomba ni gomba chancho ke sem gomba la so balok pa ta su tomba ni gom ya she ore tomba ni tanji gom thoba yena ngachu ni sem rakpa tingol lo jaka ni ja tanji gomali ni malanji ke wozer ganle jani ta ti so ta ta yo mar ta ndo shoni karba tram sem she ata no shoni mtsechi ke ja she yora ti so rantonde quand ta ni malanji ke bi wozer ki goni nyamlin che thoba yena nyomo pa vi to shik ta ta gesto gesta sonum chiatla ngato sem rakpali la se mepa yachembochi tari ton nipachiaji shede gore so
and this very subtle mind, which is, the name is the very subtle primordial innate mind of clear light. Okay, it's the name of the mind. This is a very subtle mind. So that very subtle mind, if you really can use this subtle mind, this very subtle mind, to meditate in emptiness, to meditate in bodhicitta, to meditate in other states of mind, using this very state of mind, the subtlest state of mind, is so powerful, like so powerful, that is much like it says that it's 100, 150, or like even many more times powerful than if you just use the subtle or the gross state of mind, okay, in order to transform and to have some realizations.
Teni ketan shi goya chigla ngala tamo mai ba ngaka nyawlen zya ta ngato mi wanda chini shede yore manga nyawa yeta tandro la supa ndo anda mandra wanda chini shede yo mari music po chatan jija chini ta music po chatan teni gom ja tan jija chikte shede yore ngata tamo mai ma chi
ate mi luten
mi jan te ngarke wanda chini shede yo.
So now we are exploring the tantric point of view, okay, and also the tantric explanation says that the best body, the best life to use this to explore and to meditate in this very subtle mind is the human body. And so the human body has exactly the perfect forms and the structure in order to access this very clear light mind.
That's all. Teni teleon tangazo ni semze de at ngazo tanda ngazo gela yo rezena yo ta ta pecho tsawa ni tanto yo marizendo ko Mr. Tambachi, Kenny Shandro Cable, Tama Shiwi Capital, Call Picture, Teziclini, catching machine discipline, Tani on your Semrapang non Johnny, Sem Tramo the picture Tavi, it's what is Giarapio Mares, Te Maison Zanza, Natso Tisium Tramo, the one the Kiri Tabla Tombo, Meshiwi Cables, one the Kertan the country, Chindu Teshe de Warringel.
So it's so powerful, this mind, but if you don't know how to use, for example, most of us here in this life, we don't have any opportunity to really use and explore this mind. Like we don't know how to access this mind, how to use this mind, because it's so powerful. And most of us, like even like when sometimes along this life, we have few very tiny moments that this very subtle mind is manifested, but we don't know how to use it when that mind is manifested. So in order to understand how to use what is this mind and how to use this mind, so we study and we train in the death process, because it's the same mode of using the mind, okay, the very subtle mind.
Tenindri margin in drawing that the Antoma Mibani get on when you manage TV shipa, the Rapper Lori shipa namchong, the top Chasim Chamon, the market you were the sons and you launch of Palestine. Tangazo Young Malhanji Kipi was there to Tanta Shivi Cable, Chasim Chamoni Cable, Tenia Rapa Shipa Patanga so Pechotan, so Teni Chikichilitini Geni Leongeris, Tenia Kiwachamatal Masha Parta, Rapu. Kazakinia Mombo Shede, Nato Shipato, Long Latini Joe, is a long the Ante, Sonzen Gulonzia, the Rapchara Nichi, Rapatal Teni, Teningato, Samlo Sama, the Tigan, you did your resident.
Come so Marenga de Tacale,
they are Toma me by get on new
Management, the Ramna Marana de
Hanjika, Chamota Tanga, so same Rapa ni your party, non Rapata, so Chamotini Yake on your race.
Kiajamanagua?
Tangato Kiva Jimal Gang, the Ketan the Linjol Donishi, or that Tombo in my journey short at any.
So we go to the text. So we are in the page 214 of the text. Those who have this text, okay, is starting in the moreover the gross advantageous consciousness arise from the primordial innate consciousness and so forth. So, okay, and so he's talking about Geshe start today's class in this paragraph. But anyway, so in brief, so what I want to talk today to you is, so during the lifetime, during the day that we are awake and so forth, we are using the gross consciousness. Okay, so we are. Now we are all using gross consciousness. And then before we go to the next life, we say we are talking about our very subtle consciousness, okay? So who goes to the next life? Our very subtle consciousness. When this very subtle consciousness goes to the next life, and so all this gross consciousness, they have to dissolve in the subtle consciousness, which also dissolves in its turn to the very subtle consciousness. Okay, so this is what I want to talk today, and just like also I present last week, and so when this mind, this very subtle consciousness, the very subtle primordial innate mind of clear light is the name of this very subtle consciousness. When they go to the next life, this is a consciousness, Shepa in Tibetan, consciousness, and this consciousness how goes to the next life, like using the support of a very subtle wind, okay? And so the support of the very subtle wind that we have in our body is that carries this mind to the next life, okay?
Tan ngaso dom jamni jana tiko desaro sikchama chejendro rawa tangaso den ro chi ngan ro man ro chi ta ngan ro chi ja chi ne chi shewa ina ngata da nevi kable ni je ki pa chama shi pa ra pa chang chang pe cho tangore ra pa tal ndog na la ta sandi pi cha je kana la ma kan to ja che sem zeni sem ja che tamba tsapi ni ra pa ko de sa som ne chi ni ka to ja che tamba tsapi ja yor te ti don la tanga chok ni le she de ni zanyo ching nyenyo ni she de an ro gya cha chi de an ro she wa chama kam de dosho ko ande chena sem rakpari tanda nga so gela param cheni ngonde kerde wo sanyo cheni rakparan ri sanyo cheni nyo ni shi nyomong ri tsama gewa ri tsama ma cheza terita tanda ngonde kergori ti tan nga kal tmo main bu shepi kanto gyacha ze ari chi yore te tsama tanda nga to ngonde kerde ni raksho raw samlo tere tambo te yin
ina da sanyo nin chua ni shiparakpa marira tanda
sanyo cheni
sanyo tu
je rakpari tanda
chamo mari ka and so for example now
desa ni tar ni gun ng rakpari deo ya desa mombo chena mishita
dela ni chamo lab gido ani nga
desa da kindo shako kacha washita ishi ga taraktar ya te yor
yeah and so so for example, now we are all awake and we are using all of our gross consciousness. When we say gross consciousness, are those consciousness that are related to the sense consciousness, with our physical faculties, right? So for example, visual consciousness and so forth. All of these consciousness are known as gross consciousness, okay? And not only these sensorial consciousness, but also like the sensations, emotions, and any other specific functional minds that we call secondary minds or mental factors, okay? These also mental factors, and not only mental factors, but for example, all the afflictions. So anger and so forth, the afflictions, the root afflictions or the secondary afflictions, all of them, they are gross consciousness, okay? And of course, like we are just discussing here, sometimes in some books, and so they present the afflictions as subtle consciousness, and depend if it's just sutra approach or if it's tantric approach, but in general has to be considered as gross consciousness. That's what we just discussed a little bit here.
Tani nga shipara pa chanja pecho tante ore nyamle chena ya tingol pecho tangore magewa control la tan do chaki wala sopi nyomon ba chena sipate mato shipachamo ti kyoni pecho tangyo mare ani shipachamo te katile grezi ti tanga ndawochi ina nasandro china ni tanga shasona tani sachame longun jonga jaram gi dagre tat daram chama wol mandu ten do do ji sachame longun jonga chama deni da parshi na goni upeti chenro ya chior ota parti chenro vi kabla tanda rakpi shipa chama tsduni teni rakpi shipa tel tanda nonche taksum goni nawal ma thamni roja kare thamzena ta nawate yangon de kirin gangi shipa rakpa chama ta tanda Ganglishiagi shipara patama making shaloni tananga sota meet the shasons and nagoni mukta make chandro cable. Shipara patama tenijani nyambari. Shipachamotso tenijani gotsugare.
So nowadays we, like when we are awake, so when we are live or awake, so we are using basically just the gross consciousness, isn't it? Just gross consciousness. We cannot access or use the subtle consciousness, leave aside the super subtle consciousness. But so if it's like that, so now I'm using all the gross consciousness, clear. At the time that, let's say that I become a little bit sick and then I die. In the process of death, in this process that I'm about to leave this life and go to the next step. And so in that very moment, all my gross consciousness, they dissolve to the subtle consciousness. But first of all, what is this dissolving process of the gross consciousness during the death process? Is when all the four elements, like the earth, water, fire, and wind, they dissolve. And so when these four elements, physical four elements, they dissolve, is that when the doctor said, oh, this patient is dead, because it's not breathing, right? It's not breathing anymore. When the doctor said, oh, this patient is not breathing anymore, and so it's clinically considered dead. But actually it's not dead yet, because actually the subtle mind is still within the body. So the body is not dead, the person is not dead yet, because after these four dissolutions of the four elements or the four stages of the gross consciousness, just then it starts the other four stages of dissolutions of this very subtle. No, the subtle and very subtle stages of mind, okay, which are the appearances. And in this book is saying about the luminosities, appearances or luminosities, okay, are just name of subtle minds. So when these subtle minds dissolves into the very subtle mind, just then we go to the next line.
Laso tani jeni ta dandar namche ta so woxar jipi shipab je param jeni jeni le ngore ti je gna ka tan tasho ngoma woxar ziyat le gore ti samdala rakpan rawo sigire nawa tan che pata nyetob ze tinji kabla nawi kabla tonam pena tonka namka le dawa sharin tsel karton ton chi yo tinji nawa chi mung che kanz gente lotel chagdan share yo mare la chi ka to karmandra mandra sha yo mare chi kanz ti ma to chi kan sha me ya chi ore te na la kala maziri tini tim chotel nyet che pa marla mazeta marla bashir ondi tanga chon nam khali nyema wo sharni mar ton ton raw nawa chingdo tani chik pe jan du ten raw chik ma to che kanji sha yo mare ti kabre tini nyertom nalam bazete sambatri ti kavla tini nachtap se roja chi penam cel davo kya me nyewo kya me cel nachtup tup chi wa ti nawan ri shan rogre ti jiku tala jeni tatanda tamcha tombi woxar ze woxar ngoni de ti ji legre tat shipat shiu shipak sarbo tama ni pachimbo tini shiu chi yengo ze ore ti nang ta sem chashor te tel se ore ni ma somda te ta chi gal thamnyo ta so li chaware ta yo ti paru jak pa chi charak tani chi shego ore
ani chashodi user la katok mitse yorebe mitse yorebe shibadi ani
omung na mayo mu pa ta tel sheto ko taran tomba ni ton ro rezini chi yore
ta marina sonto ni na yo marira si donda dempa ni chipo ni nana ani sonto nango marira
kol sendo ko kecha shra she o mare zu ta ko tikabla mi seyna tomba ni to ko rezini shenye chingdu ta tel shetser mandra ji counter kol til ton sang namba shuji lewe wandu te shengdu ta yon tra resha ton ni ngoni mare Tonsang namba chile greze tati kabla toni gomna ha champion choko karezena kerto ko chupa tsama yeni pa tomba chasara sonza tomba ni tika ko gomna ha jani jancho li laboyo ni la tomba ni le teze gya chen ko na tika kabla sem teze deto na toni shak le greze ni wote sheng.
So when the four first stages of death, right, of these dissolutions happen, so all the four elements dissolve, and so we stop breathing. We know that the patient, right, stops breathing, and then after starts the four appearances. Okay, here in the book, I don't know if some of you have the book, and so the first three stages or the first three appearances, I'm gonna read just for you to listen, but are the three appearances of luminous appearance and luminous radiance and luminous imminence. Okay, they're the three names, very fancy names, but they're the three appearances of these dissolutions. These three dissolutions, the three dissolutions, are when the subtle minds are dissolving. Okay, and the last one, the mind of clear light of death, is the very subtle mind. And so we have the four gross consciousness dissolving, and then three subtle consciousness dissolving, and then the very subtle consciousness dissolving. These are the eight dissolutions of death. Okay, within this subtle consciousness and the dissolutions of the three subtle consciousness, in the first one, which name is luminous appearance. So in that moment, the person who is undergoing to this process has that appearance of white, in the sense of, the whitish moon of a full moon of an autumn, like it's white, it's pure, it's white. So that white radiance, that whitish light, is that person in this stage of the death has this appearance. Okay, when these stages finish, then enters the fourth. The second of the three, the second appearance of the subtle mind, which name is luminous luminous radiance. In this luminous radiance, after seeing that whitish radiance of the moon, and then after sees a little bit, how to say, reddish or orange or reddish of the light of the sunset. The same light of the sunset is that reddish appearance that the patient, that person which is dying, sees. So just sees this light, nothing else. Now nothing else. Okay. Yes. Okay. And then after this appearance ceases, or that subtle mind dissolves, is the same. Okay. Then has another appearance, which is an appearance of completely dark. You know, like in the universe with nothing, no light, no nothing. So that completely darkish appearance. Completely dark appearance is the manifestation of the less of the subtle mind, calls luminous imminence. Okay, so these are the three subtle consciousness already dissolved, and so we are in the 7th stage. And then finally, the 8th and last stage of the death process is when the very subtle mind manifests. And this very subtle mind calls mind of the clear light of death. Why is like that? Because in that very moment, I even asked like if there was some light, some color or some light appearing in that moment. There is no color, no nothing appearing in that moment. But what appears is sort of a very big empty, not emptiness, a very big empty appearance. Because everything's so empty in that appearance, in that moment, because it's the manifestation of the very subtle mind manifested in that moment. For this reason, is so powerful, that very mind, that those who are trained and then are able to use that mind in that moment of one's own stage of death to meditate in emptiness, then the realization of emptiness can be very powerful in that state of death. Okay, so it's like that, and then after this, finish.
Question.
He didn't say this; it doesn't translate.
So the person that went through this process, how he came back to kind of describe all the stages,
how to know this.
Yes, because if the person is dying, so then
after dying, no more.
Yeah.
Oh
so,
yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
How was all this studies came to us, or if you can go through all this and come back consciously.
Everyone at home could hear, right? Kurangi tiwa diris. Yala so anita dani chua ki rimpa gedwas. Gepa parduina remena dumpa gepa pardus. Tampo ani kandis hako giresra. Ani perna konso ani shipegi perna michikani dumpa gepas pardu parleb. Ani dijela yankar tu si ya leb ani yankar solesov. Ani solo yankar landas. Ani mashi. Ani samo de kabla nga karpo tonsos marco tonso shishi. Ani kandes hako gires. Chik pato ya doya yorebes tiwa tampo. Tiwa nipa ani kandes ditola kandes lobjong chegore. Kandes lobjong chegore se namindusra. Di hako ya chetusra. Kandes kiranso kandes hako idwa.
Tata jong shia rare nga roina. Naru roina ta jong nol ma te shia ro te ranjin le yichi chin ro yore. Ina ya ta ko jong nol shetan chen te kanji hako rezina tan te nga so te mechi shiwi ramba te she de gore te ngonru chekin ro chi re mug jima te le gom jawe te naje chi ta ki naje ni shamago ni muki nikse thamo partan ro yam shel le yung gore ta tange parab chen ni ju sam
Di gomre.
gom jam ni
Gom chipo.
gom jam ni longtemps ma tsendeni nago ni chuni ta me gom ja yor
Ai shigeda.
pati na shun jo do re ta shego mari ta ki tsle yung gore ta ga Pandro at the Lungjong Lagre, Tele at the Ludo Lagre, Lungjong Dokongoni, Nancheto, so was at the Jibamandro, was any young near Tomni, now Chepani, now any such a melonga that you got now taught to lift on some Param Chiniandro Mandro Tama, Gomjava, she or the wall. Sonsa, Mashi with Niela, Paragobjani, Shivi, Nikap Kasalong on the Kestan, the Chipa Chikan, Chik that left to Agichet. Tima Pamni. Ma gom jani muki woksar par ta tik goya kare woksar ka goni tomba ni gomna gom hacha yakpo yung gore hacha yakpo yung ki kare ngaso gom jam sama gom jawore gom kare chikudu nam to ko chikindwa kaptar le sona nam to ram rechia yung yo mar koro mu bakar te nasha de ach teni ni pa chembo shu yo te gom shu yakpo yung gore zeni o te sama ndo tanchi yore ta yandro mandro che tanchi she yore ngalo jam yo mar da ya
Well, this is written in the scriptures, and I can tell you that I can take the scriptures and really believe in these scriptures, and then try to put this in the practice as much as I can. And but what we can, but in order to prove this, because it's written in the scripture, so it's like that. No, it's not just like that. Actually, this all is practice of meditation. So everything here they are all informations in order to feed our practice of meditations that we can do. And so, yes, all of these, for example, these 8 stages of death, we can do these in meditation. And I mean, there are many people doing this, because I don't have experience of this, but they do use, like they do go for the 4 dissolutions of gross consciousness, and then even like they even stop breathing. Then I say, but then they die. I say, no, they not die. Okay. And then they really even like stop breathing. And I mean, yeah, the gross breathing. So they stop breathing, then they enter in the subtle level of the consciousness, and then they practice the 3 dissolutions of the appearances until could access the. Of course, there's some techniques. It's not that they die, but I mean, and then they really access the very subtle mind. During this meditation, and during this meditation, because actually we all have our problems and sufferings and so forth, because of our, in Tibetan is namtok, which is all of these talkative minds and the fantasies and creations and so forth, all of these become completely non-existent in this very subtle stage of mind. And so because in that very clear light, the very subtle mind that calls clear light, there is no appearance of any gross element, any nothing, just completely empty space and so forth. And then those people that are so highly trained and so highly trained physically and mentally, because they have to use some physical aspects in order to access these mental subtleties. And then some of them, they really can use the manifestations of this very subtle mind to meditate on emptiness, and they do this. And then when they finish to meditate this, and then they manifest all of the subtle minds, and then again the gross minds, and then they come again, sort of. And so that's how, yes, you can go and come back like that, and then you can prove this, and then you can put this into experience.
What we've been discussing so far is exclusive to Tantra, right, as is not taught in the sutras. Is it specific to certain Tantras and not others? Is this a Dzogchen perspective or a Mahamudra perspective, or is this, what we're talking about so far, common to all the different Tantras?
Would you like to ask in Tibetan?
I think you can ask it.
Tanda gilagi namshadira. Namshadi tanda bartu ani docho chikpores mare dochora maresra. Ngacho. Ani docho mares ngachoras. Tanda ani chir ngachogire la yamena ani ngachogi mijao kashi dos pero lame ge shore si amena dele sheme yore mena dzogchen tamahamudra.
Danda sandi par jabjachini shio nda ngalame so kirtan ngal jamba jefshe ndo yo ka jefshe ndo tit gamat shio danda chaji kyo namjo lame ke jeni lame ke kachari lame ke na le alhanja mandra gom sa yo pinani kamdal mombo she de amache sandi sandi pa jare ndo
but
pa chimbo ze de ta ya nyama shoko ternya chiri tomba ni gom tang ya ternya chiri ndo kirtan ngal de sebje ngam lame ke kachari
tanda ngasoke chini tanda dish namshadi
ngakon toshorita tili to ayo mari
Yeah, the Keranzo Kerani Zoani Hangala Ropachiroji. Yeah, I mean, yes, and so, just as you already know. Yes, and so this is a common practice to all Tantras, but usually when we are talking, when we are studying general presentations of, now in this case, it's about general presentations of Tantra. This is Tantra texts. Presentation. So we use, like in Tantra, we have 4 types of Tantra or 4 classes of Tantra. So we consider the highest highest presentation or highest tantra presentation. Okay, so it's like that. And also even like in Dzogchen, usually they also take the highest tantra view, and in order to meditate on emptiness and so forth. And then he said all the classes of tantra, which I don't know in English, so I not translate.
Last tani tani chigre tani ta so mi chik thamrab get the mandro ni muki cha wasar part tini ni tani kiwachma leon de amshal taki naje cheni na to so ya wasar ni tani ya niertoble ni chepa malam ni na karla matani tanda long me chasarwa watani chen ya dan le yongore tani ya na to sama geni nga son ro man chi le chena chi pa chi chang tan da na ji chen le yongore ti paru tala ni sem de chunchu chi ma to me at tombo shi cha ni ta so te jedden ga pe cho ta ya chi thau shi chen ti gom ja wor taki seke ching de chi mu ki man ro sa ta ya jar sa ki ku tala ni sem seke ching de chi mu ga chong yo mara ta ti se rimbo chi le pe cho ta ya te gom ja ni te thablam te le ti chet the shade
so yes, and so when we are going through the 8 stages of death, okay, so when we finish the 8th, or when we finish the to use the very subtle mind, right, of clear light of death. So when we finish this, so that very clear mind, the very subtle clear mind, this is the very mind that goes to the next life. Then this life is finished, and then goes first to the bardo, he didn't say, but first to the bardo, and then goes to the next life, clear, okay? And then when takes the new life, it's exactly the same, but in opposite way. So the very clear, the very subtle mind, the clear light mind, takes the new body, right, the new body, and then starts manifesting the subtle minds, right? The 3 subtle minds, the 3 appearances. And then slowly, gradually also start manifesting the gross consciousness. And slowly, all the, again, new gross and mundane conventional appearances happen again. And then this is the new life, okay? But then you can ask yourself or to me, like, so, but why we need to study this? Like, why so much complicate things and so forth? Why? Because as I said, like, when you're under the 8 stages of death, that we can practice this in meditation, the very subtle mind is so powerful that if you, but we just touch this very subtle mind for a very tiny second before going in this life. So, but it's so powerful, and we just use in a very a very tiny second before leaving this life. What a waste of time, isn't it? So in order to use a very, very powerful mind in this very life, in order to benefit us to whatever we want to transform ourselves, that's why we need to study how these minds work and how to really access this very subtle mind, so powerful mind. That's why we are studying, okay?
Tilpa gum jatan chi tezi shena zata londa tili kechan chi ma shena parche chi kensan chi ta tel cherke kasa ke nya she ya ndi ma she on di chozo de ba yo nan ji kundu me nan ji kundu ro yana ya kha ta yan ro ta ti sangal kyun yo re chojo ta wa ni ma che ro ta ngal nge yo re ni chojo chen ke len de sangal she chok ma re zini ko sangal na sa bo ka tam bo yo re chozo chojo ma che ro chojo che gwa yo ma nan ro nan ji man ro nan ji kundu ni ja ja nan ji ko re tomat je ate ya ro.
Yes. Well, and so yes, in order to really explain how to meditate and how to use this body in order to meditate, all the chakras, the channels, and the chakra channels, and very subtle wind and so forth, how to use this, and also what's the name, the drop of life that we have here. That's why we are alive. And so how to really access this drop of life and so forth in meditation, I think is topic for another time, because I cannot explain the meditation using all of this if you don't understand the meaning of each and these of the topics. Okay, so that's one thing. And for today, so we just conclude this brief tantric presentation of the minds. Okay, and I really ask you for you to be open-minded and to hear this class and these topics with a very open mind, and not just this is tantra, this is so strange and so mystical and so forth. Just don't do this. You just listen. If you don't like, or if you don't agree, or make questions, or just leave it, but don't criticize. Don't do this is not good, it's not, because actually it's not going to be in a good result for you. Okay, it's just like that.
Tani
I have a question.
yeah tuche shota ko choice you the trio sarita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fala, Ju.
My question is like, when do we know you're going to die? Because I almost died 2 times, and with epilepsy, you have your own brain keeps going, and almost died. I almost died 2 times. So I was not conscious. So how can you realize that is happening? Because I can know when epilepsy comes and it comes. Just, you cannot control. That's the fact. But how can you actually realize this is the moment? Because we lose the ability. We absolutely have no ability to control.
Did you understand? Da kurangi chiwa dires. Da tringa so ani chiwa gi rimpa danga so shimba. Inyang so danga so shiro chegidu sra. Kane hako gidua. Kare chini sra nginya mnyula tene. Ngate manis pelchel shiro chesons. Mone shiro chesons. Temani ko kurangi natsa ki ming hakuma sons. Supo tsamani dar ani duasa cheleta supo tsamani chapozo sa umbatan duas. Ani di oka ani tempator sani menkala parchins kote mani kare injitola da koma labgirira. Inyang kare dawa kashes ki ringna ke kuchi tempa mindus menkan la tagaran des ani pai kare ni chushira chushi gyune sera pipe gyune ni ani uptan sons la soparas monen te magnisra ani yanker lan sons ra tanda bardo karangile patak taran dromindo ani de ma sons anda ani karisa nga ngiso potsamani targin tanatsa di shuksempo papedice kandes nga shiro chegmindo shishi kane hakogidu res
Kirdan da shiro chegiyo me ngeni kirdan sanga kanan jina nargu long jiwa chani lo dawa chikanal sozo shewat ngoni nyamjib chengge china na gulon getan tini dawa chikanal sozo shewat khako grezi ni teshendu nagol nabgen nagol chite nish savje gnal lon getan chi shewre tat so chapon re ma to ta do shin lon na ka nga shewre zubo gon lon na ka nga nagoni gi lon je shewre lon je ta le getan manjawan chiksona tanda dijing chiksona kyo dawa chikanal shigres the dijing chiksona kyo penja ta tendila na sa yungures the dijing na go longja chiksona tanda lomba ta sol nayam yon ta tenji ta rezi ni tenji mombo ji she nayam nasa nasa yon tenji ta mombo ji she yore ta te chigre tani ni ba ta ko shinjwa ta kar rezi ti ta tanga na so ta ta so sama she yongore ta ta so sama ma lev yona long de yon tenki bari ina long de ni manjo ni ta pedi shamato ni she yon ate tende yogere ro ina na go ni long ma chena long tanda sama de yo mari sonsa ni parte te ka ngi tendi chena shi vita ni pa yo mari ta chi she na jinga le te ma chi ni chin chenyo
yes using the tantric explanations, in the tantric text, they explain that actually, yes, if you study tantra, if you study the composition of our body, the chakras and the channels, and how the wind, how we breathe, mainly the breath process, how many times the wind, right? Yes, the oxygen, the wind comes through your nostril, how many times you breathe and so forth. So if you really study, understand many signs, many aspects of the composition of one's own body and this breathing process and so forth, you can really see, like even like 6 months before, you can see that these the breathing process is a little bit not mistaken. Yes, it's not following the same pattern as before. Like is the not speed, but the amount of times, the times that you breathe in a certain. He didn't say 1 second or a minute, but in a certain amount of period. If this changes a little bit and so forth, you can know that you will die after 6 months, or sometimes if in a different, if a specific change comes in your nostril in the process of entering and leaving the inhaling and exhaling process. Sometimes because it changes a little bit, then you can see that you die after 6 months, or in the next 6 months, or that your relatives will die in sometimes, or even you can feel some epidemics also, the possibility of coming of approaching epidemics and so forth. So there are many signs and ways of having this these experiences and so forth. But definitely you have to study this text. You have to really have good understanding and practice of this. Okay.
Kitani ngaso nargo long jikta nga so nyam ja chele yo mari ko ngakanal shia ta trishendu ta parchi tani de chi yin ken chi deni long gobya ji ko reze war na
Longo
long di chani gobya shikchembo di shani gobya shikchembo ni nyambo lolo chi ni gobya ani shikchembo chi ni gobya gobya ji di gobya chemba jere ndo re long man dawa ji ko re ge ge long terse ki long sonzen ji long nyamni ki long zini long man dawa ji ore long man dawa ji chite ki gon din ni ge ore chite ki gon din ni ge ore chite ki gon din nyam de ge wala shikchembo chi ngore chite sonzen ki long je on din nyam de na go ni nyambo ge wala shikjun chu chi ngore long ge tan ba man dawa ji shi ore.
And sorry, he before said that all of these winds that is presented in Tantra texts, and so they're divided into 5 types of winds. Okay, and we can change and we can study and see all the changes within 4 of these 5 winds. Okay, and so we have many different signs of about death and so forth within these within 4 of these 5 winds. Okay, and I don't remember so well now, but I think that each of these 4 winds, and so I think. For 900 times, and so there's one. 900 times.
Yini gubja, yoni gubja.
Yes.
Nyambor lulu gubja.
Yarma.
Maringa so na kona lu nyamba anita, manyamba niori. Divshoni shichembo jiga, divshoni shichembo jiga, divshoni majiga. The could not sometimes Nako Kaini, we should I want to change. The Taz not so Nakum with your German, the Muki, Juya, Wook Ketcharishat. Then at Jay Long, the Jigon and Divshaw, Terset you long, Jigon and Divshaw, Yamni you long, Yam the Tandachin and Nakon, Yam the Yonde, Yam the Only Shichoni, Shichon at Leon the Sons and Gilon, Giga, the Shichate on the Yamni Gilon, Giga, Lomandra, Jishio. Get on Lomandra Nagani, Shawamato, Nagoni Magia, 6 or Jamba Jeton. And the Jude Yamarignol Tani Shazini Stavjanol Nietzsche Chitong of Yagore, Jay, Nietzsche to get
Karmachik and Nishura.
I long read it at Semba Gugari Jigret, and general.
Semba Gugia.
Dinoni Shicha
Gugasana
Chigro.
Nishu Karmachigre. The Nishu Karmachigna Nishudra.
Then it carry in a counter Gubjagor.
Okay.
Deni gubja.
Ale,
Deni nyambo gubja. Deni nyambo shichewa gubja, chonga gubja. Yantani parab chini gore chini. Kantar nyama chigling ni chizo ni sabjana le niche chiton chigya jagre ze ore. Ta nyamjo yakpo cheni na parishi tan chigro ore. Tan chigondi tani chastakta nayam gtakta tani damanda. Teon jakpo chicken chiga, dawa cheka chiga. Ani dawa chicken chiga, dawa chikta cheka chiga tani ore. It's almost she. So
now I really want to study properly Tantra. And then so yes, so these among these 5 winds, so 4 of them they are related to the death process, right? So it says that in 1 minute, and so is 20 times inhaling and exhaling from one nostril, and then the same from the other. But it says that maybe in one day, we are not sure, that is it needs, or one cycle of these four winds. And so it has to be like 900 inhalations and exhalations from the right nostril, left nostril, same 900 times, and then from both nostrils another 900, and also stronger inhalation and exhalations also. So there are these four kinds of winds. When any of these four winds are a little bit change something, so is represent something. Sometimes we have our nostril blocked, and then we say, it's just blocked. It's not like that. Sometimes it's not just physical. It's not just disease. It's not physical. Sometimes it's a little bit of this unhealthy pattern of these winds, and something in these winds they're coming badly. So it's also representing that it's about to happen something to you, or it's about to happen something within few months to you, to your family, and so forth. There are lots of signs if you really know if you really study these, and there's a very, very deep presentation about this.
Long enough that national long cashew resin, Pijugi Chimbo, so we are sharing that is Rasabri. Tanatu, Tanda, when you say Tamongon de Kiruala, Gom Karigago resina, Gom Jawa, Gom Gonated Sohago, Gom go nated Sohako Gondi, Saganavja machine Tamiri, Satel, Tatsu, Mombo Shuji Sheore, and then got Cheshurtel, Romata, Kamas in its Saxonganavja Sheore, Teta Hakon and Rixari, Dombani Mukisan is a partel, Saroma Roshanson, the Giton Chipan, which you Pashiore.
In a Tamada, how comes?
Mare, Tom Pacaresa? Satata, then he gets Genita. The Dombani Mukisani part, Sani Partiores,
the over
Partiores, Rostani Tayo Nichini, Gonit and some Mukisani part, some the Trambo, my Trambo is going to mate give that Shegore.
And also for if I can give you a very, very, very brief introduction. Or a presentation of during the meditation, we use any kind of meditations, but mainly within these subtle minds. We use many channels. Okay, many of our body has infinite channels, but mainly is used the three main channels in our body. The central, I'm gonna say central, right, and left. Okay, but they have specific names, and so the central, right, and left channels. So they are the main channels that we use during the meditation process, the meditative practice. Okay, and these channels, the central channel, they comes from these, how to say this? So from here down until the basic channel. Our basic channel here, and the right and left channels, so comes from sort of behind. Of course, it's behind our eyes here, and goes down until the basic channel also, and then they meet together, and where all of these winds and so forth, they circulate, they circle.
Tandanga so sem tawa chesho ning sem chamo the kawa yore zitita ninka indicatitela o tsawomi kikutela mashik bitilezeni tambo puchaya pama katranji mag zechunchu jore tinale sonzen gulon chamo tatan shipa chamo teni tinale tanda bini deoni pecho tanto yo mare zendu
de pu chapeditse di sumkare
pami katrak zechi ora tule karman range tendi chunchu chikanale tel mashik bitilelare mashik bitile na kikutela tanda so pecho tango aga ningmalanchi ke semze chi ora lonse chamo tinal nzu de yo son tanga so tanda pecho chuni tanto mindu lag
gom gya
ma jam ke michi ke pecho chuni tanto mindu
gom gya ken pecho tan chigre
tat nga so tsngwon de kiri tabla che go ndus
and then so for example when we are very, very nearly, how to say? When we arrive in this life, right? When our consciousness from our previous life enters in the union of the sperm and the ovule, and the egg and the sperm of the mother and father, and then our consciousness enters. And so this creates the drop of life that we call, but it's physical and consciousness, very, very, very subtle, sort of mini atom, sort of like that. And this stays here. And this consciousness that comes from the previous life, this is the very subtle consciousness, right? We spoke so much today. So this very subtle consciousness that is within this drop here, that it starts since we are very newly conceived until we die in this life. And so our very subtle consciousness is there. That's why most of us, we cannot access this consciousness, this very subtle consciousness. Then I ask, and then, so when we can use this consciousness, right? Even if you meditate, we cannot use this consciousness. And then it's here. That's why we need to study. That's why we need to understand how to access this consciousness here. The very conscious.
Kikutale yosondi, that's a woman gone that water so let's send some chini, some to Zen and go. Roman or Luke Yamato and Dopano Genchigla, some second. Tati Kiku yosonza, now she Ningo Moshipitile Nola, now she chamotala deotita, Moshipitile Nola, Sem chamotala deotitinam, the long chamote and yorita, long tuni, you sarakayoma, long your sarak, long your matuna, some locuni. Shiba the pecho tanto maris. The Nitanda to sound lot so long yo residioty, the Rostian long jiva nausing, some lot at some leondi. The sort of Pachan Yamato Chamomandu. That's a woman nangi, some lot and get you javala, that's a woman longtemps to go ndus, longtemps. That longtemps to go a gunning guard or warning guard or joining Rosa Masons. Tao Zaomina Londrosag Tablamanja Catseosity, then it's Zancorta Soshiangori, Yo Dechening Corlos in the Nila, Zaomina Londrosag Tala Chindus, and Jambalon Chuking Corlos in the Nishindus, Shinyanka Chuking Corlos in Ticatulian, Zaomina Londrosag Goshindus, Teva Turbin Corlos in Ticatula, Londrosachindus, Sani Decung Corlos in the Wall Yanchindus, and it's Zaomi Marneta Yane Sheriore. Dunzus raison. Kazakining sheti pache nambinal Sani Dunda Tets Sheki Kapo Yengo Lavinda, the Pache Yosari, and the Hindu Chulitsama, Sani Dudujan, the Kyoto, Hindu Yoka Jan. Tangaso non Chenaya, De Kyonjin Corlo, Rambalon Kyukin Corlo, Ninka Chukin Corlo, the Watcher Bin Corlo Sani, oh, the Kyo Dechinicolo, San Kari, Sani Karincolo, Dechun Corlo Tainsaro. Tate color chimbornata da Zawomi Yarni da Marnisana Nedan Tadarinjo. Tenin Doa Zankorchiktan, Doashi Zankorchikta, Tanda Zankorchiori, Testana Cheshiori. That's two Nangateson Tata, the two Gom Yasag Neta Tensoreta. That's two Tanda Dundushin, Yasaro, then the Pachinabinal Shejan and Ricos.
It's also any Lung Chamadi
Londa woman Drosag go your sand out in the Jamba in Drosa Yomaris. Tical Semte Dena, Semgunyam the Londa Yungo reason. Londa on the Lomin on the Magi, Lomina Gina Muki Mushipitile Nang launching the Tumna, Cotina go longer Georgia on the Mushipi Sem the Sem Chamotum on the Kerryungo reason or Tamshitish de Gorita.
So we in order to, so our big problem is how to access this very subtle mind, right? Because it's completely closed in this drop of life. The name that we use, the drop of life, right? It's closed. It's completely in jail there. Okay, and but not just because of this, but because this very subtle mind, relies where? In the subtle wind, remember. And the subtle wind needs the channels, needs the road to go, right? To go. And the road are the channels. And the road has the gates. And the gates, who are the gates? Are the chakras. And all of these very subtle channels and channels and chakras, they're all blocked. For this reason, we cannot access the very subtle consciousness within this drop of life. Okay, and how can we? So if it's blocked, how can we open? How can we unblock these chakras and these channels? So then comes the presentation of the seven chakras, like the five, like the coronaries. I don't know the names, but the coronaries, and then the throat chakra, and then the heart chakra, and then the umbilical. How to say this? Navel chakra, and then the basic chakra, and then even below and under the basic chakra, and also here. So we have all total, like mainly 7 chakras. So if we practice to open these 7 chakras, and this is this also, there is a presentation in the Hindu traditions and so forth, in yogas and so forth, but in our text, and so we have many chakras, many chakras and so forth, but mainly these 7 chakras, and also there are another four chakras that
Nini chakra man korlo marita. Sagumi yarne tamarne ni tsankorla ayo mare.
Ding lami.
Noela. So.
And so there are other 4 things that is not chakra. He just and there is something here. Maybe we say third eye or something like that. I don't know how to say how to translate this. And so, but that other 4 points here. Di chik shemba di.
Kyochin jumbachi.
Mare
korlo yosata korlo ngari. Oma yarne ma ne dun.
Dun. Inandi yankar shi chik do kiran so. Yankar shi chik do.
Chitsaya te yo.
Shi.
Shi de kyowon jumba ninka tewa shitara.
Oh, the and then other 4 that is here, and here. Okay. So in brief, and so mainly we're talking about the 7 chakras. So if we really know how to unblock these 7 chakras, we can unblock the subtle channels. If we unblock the 7 the subtle channels, then finally the subtle winds can run in our body within these channels, opening the chakras and running in the channels. And if we can open these chakras and have access to the channels, we finally can access this life of drop, and then finally the very subtle consciousness.
Also, teni titsoya zoksonda ta kasakini yang chik shiwa yin. Teni ta gomchik jawandi nga tsu mukpashik yangjo chik ngocho chik cheni tini jajaka.
Mare sha koso tiwa tiskoreda.
Re teni trawa chik tana mga titso zoksarsa.
Sorry, we already finished our first hour. And so before, yes, about meditation, maybe we leave a little bit for now. And if you have any question, people at home also questions?
I have one
Yes.
question. That's okay.
Yes, sure.
In the stages of the path, there are 3 scopes, right?
Lamdron.
And then, is this like a different level, a different subject, or is it in one of these scopes?
Lamdron kyo samgo lamdron dandini lokari ta
Kiosumda. Lamrim nala ni kiosumda. O di tantananga so kecha. Zambulin lokare tagarari.
Loka mare. Tanda sanga kanyawle chenki nangi kasa kinyi shiya yinchu michi kewe chembu lamram yingor. Kewe chembu lamram yingor amaza ngem job chansem yanta pitawa jirja cheni nyawle che go kichigre ma to temeni taza kunju muju nyawle che kecha chi yo mara sanga le. Kewe chembu lamram jirja. Tayo kewe chembu lamram to ngondron rawo chik she go re ta kewe chembu lamram zina su ngem job chansem yanta pitawa samdara. Te samde ya pochi yo na kewe chembu lamram chandru.
Yes, it's related to one of these 3 scopes. 3 scopes or 3 kinds of individuals, right? The lower capacity, the middle capacity, and the bigger capacity. These capacities are just like aspirations. You want your aim is to get liberated from lower realms, the suffering of lower realms, or you want to get liberated from samsara, or not only that, the samsara of everyone else. So these are the 3 scopes, right? So yes, definitely, like now talking about Tantra, and so it's just related to the higher capacity, like the great scope.
Bodhicitta.
Yes, because those who higher aspiration, that's why it's great scope. It's not that we are looking down to the others and so forth. It's just like the aspiration is bigger because they wish to achieve Buddhahood in order to benefit others. So for this reason, all the tantric texts and practices is in order to meditate in emptiness, to have realization in the three three principles of, have you heard like the three principles of the past? So the Mahayana, or those people from these higher aspirations. So their main practice is to generate the mind who realize emptiness, the mind of bodhicitta, who wishes to become enlightened in order to benefit others, and also Taoyandakra. And then the pure view. So these three has to be practiced from these bodhisattvas, or the people that wish to become Buddhahood, and for them the tantric texts are made. Okay.
Nombal tepache choni teaching lamdo ta nga ni zegri nabje.
Teaching.
Sonza ndoze ngazea the teaching yimbari. Nombal tepache choni teaching la tepache bol do ta nga ni zini ya param chini.
Of course, we are talking. Usually, we have like two ways of presenting, like from the sutra aspects and from the tantric aspects, right? And from the tantric aspects, it's always for the people, for the great scope, all those people who have the highest aspiration. Any other
question? Yeah. You mentioned that in order to when we tap into that emptiness, it's the breath that leaves first.
Emptiness, that breath leaves first.
During the meditation, in order to reach the nothing, the wind, the breath is the last thing that you access. Has it ever happened that the wind goes in a different order, so that it's not the breath that has the last?
That is the last. Sometimes it's the first. That's your question.
Middle, does it always have to be in that syntax?
In any stage, right? Not just in the death process, but in meditation process. Tana chiwagi gorim gedwa. Chiwa gorim ge ina dai amena gom ge peditiani gorim gedwa. Gela tampoti son sos jungwa shina ne tama lunjua das kensana uchene. Di gela shine tama oser hadrira. Ani gorim di taktere bezi amena kabla tampo ukche di gela papa.
Te korum tatari tanda di wuche zeya te rakpa dre ta na go ninga so hamuko ya tre ma to ol shipa wokram ba jetel nyam de long yo bari woser li nyam de long chamoti yori ta long rakpa ta so chenro ati samre mi pangrum tara ta jeja yen songori ta.
Yes, it's exactly in this order. So always is the fourth stage is the wind element, the seas. But remember that the wind element, the seas, is we're talking just about the gross wind, because it doesn't mean that there is no wind anymore, or not air anymore, not wind anymore, because after these fourth stages we still have the other four stages that are three subtle minds and one very subtle mind, right? Within all of the subtle and very subtle minds we have still a wind, but it's a very subtle wind and very subtle wind together with the subtle mind and very subtle mind. But the order is exactly like that. This wind doesn't come up, it doesn't go.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much. See you on Thursday. See you Thursday.
Tani amunam de songa so cho lena na ti kabla so ngoto chera amangde sanko rere la muna te tan rere gomja tan rere shegyo.
Yes, and so if you can also be present the day after tomorrow, and so on Thursday, you carry on the explanation mainly about these the meditation on the chakras and the winds and so forth. Okay, so if you can be present, and also if any questions and so forth, please bring. We have this WhatsApp group. You can send to the WhatsApp group also. Definitely, me or any other of the translators, they will happily translate the questions for you. Okay. Okay. See you.
Thank you.
See you. Ciao.
See you, Karis Chilagor. See you.
In which
See you
language?
next day.
See you next Thursday.
Thursday. See you Thursday. See you Thursday.
Okay. See you.
Kamacha te bandro sar.
No problem. Keep it.